PreSnap Podcast with your NFL division previews ahead of the 2023 season. Alongside my co-host Tyler Wiemann, I'm Shannon Sommerville, and we have got your win totals, your futures market bets, everything to get you set for football season that's coming up. We'll talk fantasy relevant players and our forecast for the different players, as well as some bets that we like that are available for season long on Underdog Fantasy. Tyler and I will both reveal our best bets for those futures market bets. So you definitely want to tune in. And the NFC North, that is where we are headed today. And it is an interesting one, especially because when Aaron Rodgers is no longer the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, that opens up a lot of things in the NFC North. Last year, though, it was actually the Minnesota Vikings who took the title for the first time since 2017. Kirk Cousins, that offense with Justin Jefferson was absolutely electric. Some, though, knocked the Vikings, saying they were a little bit lucky last season, which they were according to the luck metric, which is an actual stat. They were a very lucky team last year, according to that. However, now it's kind of a different ball game without Aaron Rodgers there to challenge with the Green Bay Packers. And you've got the Detroit Lions, who have emerged as kind of a feisty team there in Detroit. So they are actually the favorites heading into this one. We'll start off with the favorites and then work our way down. We'll go through all of the win totals, our predictions for the teams, fantasy relevant players, and then our bets for each team. All right, starting things off with the Detroit Lions here. Last year finished with a 9-8 record. They are the favorites to win the NFC North, plus 900 to win the NFC. Fourth best odds, though, behind the Eagles, 49ers, and Cowboys. And the ninth best odds to win the Super Bowl. Their win total is set at 9.5. Now, the Detroit Lions started the season last year 1-6, but finished 9-8, the team's first winning season since 2017. The team, though, has only won one playoff game since 1957. Will this be the year for the Detroit Lions? Tyler, what do you think?
I mean, I would hit that win total and go higher for sure. I think the team can beat 9.5, and I agree that they should be the favorite probably to win this division.
Let's talk about some of the offseason moves they made. They certainly made a lot of them, including adding running back David Montgomery from the Bears. Now, I found an interesting stat on Montgomery here I want to read off. 71% of Montgomery's yardage came after initial contact, and in 4 seasons with the Bears, he averaged more than 48 forced missed tackles per year, so not a bad pickup for them. They did lose DeAndre Swift, who went to the Eagles. Jamal Williams gone. They drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, 12th overall. Linebacker Jack Campbell at 18th overall, and then they took tight end Sam Laporta in the second round. They also drafted a quarterback, Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, in the third round, and they also added to their secondary, which had been kind of an Achilles heel for them. They added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley, and Cam Sutton in the secondary. DJ Chark is gone, and Jameson Williams has a 6-game suspension. You just can't gamble on sports when you're playing in them, Tyler.
No, that is very true.
So they made a lot of moves. What do you make of the Lions? And let's talk about fantasy players. Who are you eyeing from a fantasy perspective?
So let's start off with the running backs. I like where both Gibbs and Montgomery are going. You know, you mentioned how Montgomery, 71% of his yardage came after initial contact. Now, the Bears' offensive line wasn't very good. The Lions' offensive line is good. And this is, you know, a team that allowed Jamal Williams last year 17 touchdowns. I would expect Montgomery to take a little more of that Jamal Williams role. And if he just has half of those touchdowns, I think he'll have a very good year. And then that would put Gibbs more in the DeAndre Swift role, maybe a little bit bigger than the real Swift role, just because they really were careful with him after he got hurt a couple times. So I think this truly could be like a 50-50 backfield. And it's a backfield we have seen 2 running backs be fantasy relevant in, and I think these two can both be relevant. And I like both of them where they're being picked.
Yeah, the Detroit Lions in general, just a fantasy-friendly team last year. Just seems like anytime they're playing at Detroit inside, I mean, there was just so many points to be had for fantasy players there. What do you make of Jared Goff and your predictions for him this season?
I think he'll probably have a very similar year to last year. We know who he is. I don't think he's growing anymore as a passer. I do like Amon-Ra St. Brown quite a bit, though. He is definitely Jared Goff's go-to guy. And as a whole, this offense is working, and it's an offense I definitely want pieces of.
All right, so you're hitting the over on the win total at 9.5. I am too. How about Underdog Fantasy season-long bets? Do you have any here, or how are you approaching the Lions?
I do have one, and he is a guy that I just talked about, Amon-Ra St. Brown, higher than 1,010.5 receiving yards. Look, he almost had 1K yards his rookie season, and that was with him not factoring into the first half of that season. Down the final stretch, he just caught on fire, and that fire, kept going all of last year where he had over 1,100 yards, and I think it's pretty safe to assume that he'll be over 1,000 yards once again.
For my bet, I'm actually going to the defense in this one, and one of the stars on the Detroit Lions is, of course, their defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson, higher than 10.5 sacks. This is the former number 2 overall pick, and he actually just cracked the NFL Top 100 Players list at 88. And last season, his rookie season, he just progressed. It got better every single week. He finished with 9.5 sacks in his rookie year. And when you saw some of those other players talk about him on that special of the NFL Top 100 Players, Jets running back Bam Knight said, I'll be the first to admit he was basically playing in our backfield when we played against them. That's just the type of player he is. Aiden Hutchinson is an absolute game wrecker in this one and will have double-digit sacks this season, barring injury or anything like that. But I think he is a star, and I know we've been talking about the fantasy relevant guys, but Aiden Hutchinson, somebody to watch for Detroit in 2023. I also have another one for you because I'm really high on Detroit this season, and I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs, their running back, higher than 580.5 rush yards. Gibbs is an incredible running back. 926 yards at Alabama. He was drafted 12th overall. And listen to this stat. Every running back drafted that high has finished as RB11 or better in fantasy, which, of course, is going to equate to some rushing yardage. He's got blazing speed and should absolutely do wonders behind a pretty good offensive line here. He's in the 99th percentile in speed. Now, I know that he will have some competition from David Montgomery, but I think that's still doable. Swift had over 500 rushing yards. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is probably a bit more of a dynamic and explosive back in this situation. I think he will be able to surpass that 580.5 rushing yards in this one. The other thing when you're looking at rushing yards is to consider he's also a great pass catcher as well, so that might take away a little bit there, but I'm not shy at all. I love Jahmyr Gibbs this season, and I cannot wait to see him play this season. I think he's going to be a fantasy stud for a lot of people this year. What are your thoughts on Gibbs?
And I mean, to your point with Gibbs being a very good pass catcher, possibly taken away from some of the rushing yards. Look, Swift was too, and Swift, was able to go over that. And I would say Gibbs is more likely or probably more durable than Swift. So with that, also, I would say, you're good to go to probably hit that higher.
Those SEC running backs, man, they can get it done. All right, let's head to the Minnesota Vikings. Taking a look at their record last season, they finished 13-4. First division title since 2017. They didn't have a great offseason in terms of a lot of moves, but hey, they still got Justin Jefferson, so that's kind of all that matters, right? Odds to win the NFC, they have the 6th best odds to win it there. I know that a lot of critics are saying they might have some regression this season, given the fact that they did get kind of lucky, or critics feel they did get a little lucky last year, and they kind of came back down to earth in the playoffs when they played the Giants and got a little bit exposed there. But nonetheless, they had a successful season last year. I think we can all admit that they overperformed above expectation last season. What do you expect for them this season, Tyler?
I mean, anytime you have a 13-4 record,
Yeah.
there's got to be some things that go right, even if you are like, the Kansas City Chiefs or one of
Yeah.
the elite teams. Things have to go your way, and they absolutely did last year. To say they regress all the way to under 8 wins, I think is probably a stretch. I think they are a little bit better than
Mhm.
that. And, I would not be surprised whatsoever if they go over. And if I had to bet, that's where I'd be going.
Okay. Notable offseason moves for the Vikings. They did part ways with Adam Thielen, who's now at Carolina. They also cut Dalvin Cook. They traded pass rushers Zadarius Smith and defensive tackle Dalvin Tomlinson. They did sign cornerback Byron Murphy. And an interesting one here for fantasy purposes, they drafted wide receiver Jordan Addison from USC. They also signed tight end Josh Oliver. And they got a new DC in there in Brian Flores. Any fantasy relevant players you're looking at besides Justin Jefferson, who I've seen go number 1 overall in quite a few drafts? What do you make of the fantasy players here?
Yeah, I mean, Jefferson's the automatic one, but I think Madison is in line for, a pretty good season. I think he's likely being undervalued in fantasy drafts right now. I like the addition of Jordan Addison. I think that he is going to be able to take that Thielen role, maybe a little bit more. And that just also, props up Kirk Cousins a little bit. And that's all before even talking about TJ Hawkinson, which, if there is one tight end that I think can knock off Travis Kelce as being the number 1 tight end, I think it could be TJ Hawkinson this year.
All right, then. So TJ Hawkinson, definitely somebody to look at for fantasy purposes. Quite the stud. What are you looking at from a betting perspective on Underdog Fantasy?
I got to go back to TJ Hawkinson,
Okay.
higher than 800.5 yards. I think that's just too low. He had 519 last year in 10 games with the Vikings. And that's with him coming in mid-season and not really knowing the offense and having to slowly be fit into it. Now he has a little more time. He's going to fully understand that offense, and he's going to be playing, a majority of the snaps for the entire season. And I think he is a guy that could average 8, 10 plus targets. And if he's doing that, 800 is going to be way too low.
When I was kind of looking at the Vikings, I had a really hard time. So I decided to not go with any bet here. I can't endorse a bet just for the sake of doing it on the show. I mean, I went back and forth. I thought about maybe fading Kirk Cousins a little bit. He was really banged up last season, and we kind of saw it, Tyler. I don't know if you watched the documentary on Netflix, The Quarterbacks, and it really showed you like how much he was kind of hurting throughout the season. And as he gets older, I do worry a little bit about a durability component there. And yes, they're going to be more familiar with this offensive system, and so I think their offense is going to be rolling still. I mean, they got Justin Jefferson. That's all we really need to know about that offense. He's incredible. I just had a hard time with some of the lines there for even Jefferson too. Like, it just seems high.
Jefferson's receiving yards, 1,400. Like, that's such a good season. It's so hard to go over on that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just he gets hurt at all and he doesn't hit it.
Exactly.
He's totally healthy. Yes, he should break that. But
so yeah, that's why I'm kind of shying away from Minnesota Vikings at this point. And yeah, but I do like your bet there with TJ Hawkinson. You know, I love my tight ends as I did last season. I think every week when we did our props of the week, I picked a tight end to go over on receiving yards. I think that was a guaranteed best bet. It's also a testament to just how offensive coordinators are just utilizing the tight end position to create mismatches and really capitalize on some leverage there. So I think that that's also something to look at for the tight ends there as well. Really just using them as weapons on offense. We've seen, Dallas Goedert, Travis Kelce, they're absolute playmakers. Mark Andrews, yep. They're going to be playmakers once again. So some other guys to keep an eye on. Now let's take a look at the Green Bay Packers. 2022 finished with a record of 8-9. Their win total is set at 7.5. Of course, the biggest offseason move in the NFC North was right there in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers now to the Jets. Also, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb went over to the Jets, and they also tight end Robert Tonyan and Mercedes Lewis left, and they did sign safety Jonathan Owens, and they drafted some an edge defender, Lucas Van Ness from Iowa. That was their first round pick, 13th overall. And then they drafted tight end Luke Musgrave from Oregon State and wide receiver Jaden Reed. So they did get some offensive guys in there. I just do not know what to expect, Tyler, quite frankly, from this Green Bay team that is just going to undergo a whole new identity without Aaron Rodgers. And now we get to see the Jordan Love era. What is your take?
Yeah, this is a team that's really pretty impossible to project anything for because we just don't really know too much about it. We don't know if they're going to lean extremely, extremely heavy on the run and just not give Jordan Love that many attempts, or if they're just going to be like, here's the keys, Jordan, run with it. And with that, it's really hard to project too much, though. One thing I will say is that in best ball, I do like some of these guys. I think they are going a little bit lower because everybody is unsure of what to think. So I think if you are drafting, a lot of teams, then it's in your best interest to definitely get and prioritize some of these guys just because there is so much volatility and the ceiling is pretty high.
There is absolutely a scenario in which the Packers do just fine next year.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've seen this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen this play out before with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. There's a chance that Jordan Love is really good and just runs with the offense.
And that could absolutely be the case. For me, Tyler, not going near here for any bets on Underdog Fantasy for that reason. You mentioned the volatility, and I just got to see him. I mean, maybe after a couple preseason games, I'll be more comfortable. I don't know. Probably not. Especially when we're talking about futures bets where you're like, your money's tied up for a long time, and I just want to make sure that when we're giving out bets that I can kind of fully endorse them and not just give you guys for the sake of having something to give you.
100% agree, and this is one where I don't have any bets on Underdog either. I will say, however, that if you are high on, Jordan Love or low on him, that, you absolutely could parlay his pass catchers and him together either way you want, because there absolutely is some edge on here. If you think what's going to happen, or if you have a better idea than most. Right now, I really don't know which way this one's going to go.
Well, do we know anything more about the Chicago Bears? All right, let's move on to them. They have the longest odds to win the NFC North this year. Last year, they finished with just a 3-14 record. Notable offseason moves, though, for them. They did get some weapons for Justin Fields. Now, they traded their first overall pick to Carolina for a 9th, a 61st, and a first round next year, plus a second round pick in 2025, and of course, wide receiver DJ Moore. So they got DJ Moore there. They also drafted offensive tackle Darnell White from Tennessee. So some people to kind of solidify the offense a little bit more for Justin Fields so that now he actually has people to throw with. Last year was pretty abysmal. I remember watching, a Thursday night game where he just had nobody to throw to, and it was just a frustrating thing to behold, especially as Justin Jefferson started to go off in fantasy football throughout the course of the season and put up some insane fantasy numbers. What do you make of Justin Fields and your projections for him this season?
I like his outlook a lot as far as fantasy. He is an electric rusher, so you have to love that for fantasy. I think DJ Moore is a very, very talented receiver, so obviously he gets a little bump up in there. And with his passing game, he really doesn't need to improve that much better to really, really make him an elite fantasy quarterback. So I like Justin Fields a lot. I like this offense. I don't mind the team as a whole. I think it's a very interesting spot. This is another one with a lot of volatility, another team that is with a lot of volatility. But I am much more interested in taking these guys. And if you're drafting Justin Fields, you don't get DJ Moore. That's okay. He's not a guy you have to stack with. But I do really like taking Darnell Mooney or Cole Kmet late to stack with Fields.
Interesting. All right, so a lot of good plays there for fantasy purposes, and this is definitely an offense to look at for that for those purposes.
Yeah, and the
Underdog,
running
go
back
ahead.
situation is interesting.
Oh, yeah, correct.
Because we have Khalil Herbert and Deontay Foreman. Herbert is likely going to take that Montgomery role, and he was kind of a home run hitter the last couple seasons prior to him getting hurt, which he has, every season.
Yeah.
So I really think both of these guys are viable, and you should be drafting both. Dante Foreman could be a really good late round pick if Herbert gets hurt.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how Justin Fields does with a couple new weapons around him. And I think it's also kind of a test for that offense and seeing, I think the Bears are kind of seeing, is this the guy for our future of our franchise at this point? And they're giving him the guys to go out and do it. Let's see what they got. How about an Underdog Fantasy season-long bet here? You got anything for us, Tyler?
I do. We're going Justin Fields higher than 87.5 rushing yards. Look, he had 1153 last season, and I think he may run slightly less this year, but that also might allow him to play the full season if that happens. I don't think 875 is too high whatsoever. I think he will beat that easily, and he'll have a handful of games where he, rushes for over 100. So
I love where your head's at with Justin Fields, and I am on that train as well. I'm going to Justin Fields higher than 18.5 passing touchdowns in this one. He had 17 passing touchdowns last season, and he didn't have nearly the weapons that he has this year with DJ Moore. He also has Chase Claypool, and he still has Darnell Mooney. He's also more comfortable in the offense under Luke Getsy. Luke Getsy, their offensive coordinator, has talked about how he's able to get a little bit more complicated with the offense and start to throw in some new layers and new things to that offense. So I think that will be an area that he will definitely exceed his total there at 18.5 passing touchdowns. I love that spot for him, and I hope he does for fantasy purposes as well. I know that last year I had him on my team, and he helped me out a good bit. I didn't win though, Tyler.
Yeah, I know you didn't. I do have to say that I think your prop is likely a little more safe than mine, just because injury can so easily derail mine. So,
yes,
and it
absolutely.
could be an injury. It could even be an injury that he plays through, just I guess a little bit of a, hamstring issue that he keeps playing. He's just not running. So,
yeah. And that's the thing with all these futures props. It's just, I don't love, it's not my favorite, but when you can find some edge there, but it's just especially today. So the day that we are taping this show is the day that we just saw 3 players get carted off the field at training camp. We hope they're all okay, but it just really, underlines the fact that anything can happen in these bets, and especially when you have a running quarterback who's such a dynamic rushing threat like Justin Fields. If he tweaks his ankle or something like that, it can drastically change the outcome for some of these totals for the season. But yes, again, I do like the passing. I think they will lean more into the passing game a little bit this season, or I expect them to, because they made a pretty big commitment to some of those receivers.
Yeah,
So
it obviously
seems
seems like that is their plan. They traded for Claypool, they traded for Moore. They're trying to pass more. Just we'll see if Fields can do it.
All right, so who do you think will emerge from the NFC North victorious and Kings of the North, Tyler?
I mean, the favorite is definitely the Lions, and I would have to roll with them. You're going to think I'm nuts here, but I think the Bears do have a chance, though.
I like where your head's at. With going a little crazy there with the Bears. I don't hate it. I love Justin Fields. As you know, he's a former Georgia Bulldog. Sort of. I get it. You're going to say, no, he went to Ohio State. He started his career at Georgia, guys. So I got love for Justin Fields, even though he left us. It's okay. But yes, so I do like the Bears. However, I just can't shy away from the Detroit Lions and what they've got going on. Culture is real, people. And they, from every report that's come out of there. They love Dan Campbell, their head coach, and he has got them fired up. And I think that it was almost a play-in scenario for that last game of the season where they knocked out the Packers' chances to make the playoffs in that last game. And I just think that was a testament to, even though they knew heading into that game that they had no shot at making the playoffs, and they still played their hearts out and came back and beat the Packers to keep them out of the playoffs. I think that's kind of a testament to the overall energy you're going to see from the Detroit Lions this season. They're a feisty bunch. They're tough. Dan Campbell has those guys thinking they can run through walls. I like the mentality they have heading into the season and the pieces they have, especially for fantasy purposes. We're going to see very high octane offense, and hopefully I'll get some of those players on my fantasy team this year. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
All right, that's going to do it for us here today. Check out all of our previews so far. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure, do us a huge favor. If you're enjoying our content, do us a huge favor, like this video, and comment below. Let us know who you think is taking the NFC North or any bets that you're placing for the futures. Drop them below. We're all trying to help each other out here on Underdog Fantasy. If you don't already have Underdog Fantasy, by the way, make sure to download it. Use the promo code LineStar when you do, and you'll get up to $100 of your deposit matched. And as always, check out the LineStar app. Everything you could possibly need for daily fantasy and your prop betting. We will have some prop bet shows for NFL coming up. We got a lot of content coming your way, so make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and sign up for those notifications so you know when we're coming out with videos. That's going to do it for us today. Good luck in all of your betting endeavors. We'll see you guys next time.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.